I'm now going to introduce our main speaker tonight, Joyakgol. Joyakgol is an anti-war activist and musician. He's been at the forefront of local villager struggles to stop the expansion of U.S. military bases, to shut down South Korea's Jeju Island naval base, and to prevent the installation of the THAAD missiles, which enable a first strike. Also, he's involved in conserving marine life. And he's here to help us tonight to discuss a sustainable peace in Korea and the Korean people's struggle against militarism in East Asia at this time of Trump's threats of nuclear war. So please welcome Joyakgol.
Thank you for inviting me and having me this opportunity where I'm going to be talking about the situation that South Koreans are living on Korean Peninsula every day. It's not just Korean people living, but also some 200,000 American civilians living in South Korea and about 1 million Chinese people living in South Korea too. So if Donald Trump is going to wage a war on Korean Peninsula, somehow there are going to be a whole lot of American civilians and Chinese people killed by his military action. So whenever he makes these dreadful threats against North Korea, that if necessary the US is going to totally destroy North Korea, it makes us, South Korean people, feel that we are going to die because of his childish action. Because Korea is divided, but on this small peninsula, we live there together. If you bomb that country, South Korean people will die too. People like me will die too. So we are very angry. We are furious against Donald Trump because he says all options are on the table. Let me tell you, military options should not be on the table. If you are true friends of South Korea, if you are an ally, then you should never ever think about using military options against Korea. I'm a Korea peace activist and environmental activist. During my speaking tour, I was asked, what made you to be a peace activist? I was drafted into the military when I was 19 years old. South Korea has a compulsory military system, and so we don't have any choice. Either you become a conscientious objector to the military service and face 18 months of jail time, or you have to become a soldier. And becoming a soldier in South Korea means that you have to go through horrible things every day. Well, I became a peace activist because I didn't want anybody could do the same thing that I went through in the military. It was very traumatizing. Well, they taught you to be a patriot. They tell you to love your country. They tell you to hate communists. Well, I was 19 years old. I don't know who communists were. I didn't know what communism was about. But I was learned to hate those communists and ready to kill those communists. I was learned discipline, which I hated. Later, I realized that patriotism is not about loving your country. It's not about loving the government. The farmers of Pyeongtaek, the small village of Daechuri, who spent most of their lives growing rice and food, they said to us, one of them actually said to me that to be a patriot, he said, it means to love the land. So later I finished the military service. I became a peace activist and I started my action because South Korea is one of the most militarized societies in the whole world. Patriarchy is there. Militarism is controlling the everyday lives, and it's very hierarchical society too. And the military teach you everything that you learned before in the Korean society, but you know it's like 10 times worse. They say that you have to stand up and protect your sister. They say you have to take up arms to protect this country. But later I realized that it means that those young boys were trained to protect the establishment. We were trained to protect the ruling class privilege, their rights to oppress most of the people. And so I decided to resist against this militarism. And in 2004, South Korean government announced its plan to expand this huge US military base in Pyeongtaek. They said, we're going to relocate US troops to Pyeongtaek area, and so the 500 farmers either voluntarily leave or face forceful eviction. Of course, most of the farmers chose to live in their own community that they lived for hundreds of years. What South Korean government did to kick out those farmers from their own land, their own houses, is to send 20,000 militarized riot cops, the police with riot gear, and soldiers too with guns, into the rice paddies, into the school that we used for peaceful resistance as headquarters of farmers' resistance against the expansion of Camp Humphreys. On May 4th, 2006, finally those huge number of riot police and soldiers came. 5 o'clock in the morning, we were ready to defend our land and our village, but we were outnumbered. There were just too many thugs and police, and it was incredible. Too many people were injured on that day, and the farmers were beat up by the soldiers and police. And so they finally had to leave, and they were forcibly displaced by the US military. Why? At the time, the US military set up a new agenda, its new military policies in Asia-Pacific region. At the time, it was called flexible, strategic flexibility. It means that if you are stationed in South Korea, well, in the past, before this strategic flexibility, you don't get to leave. You stay in South Korea and defend South Korea. That was their jobs. But now, you have this flexibility. You can go anywhere according to the U.S. Military plans. Those U.S. troops stationed in South Korea can be dispatched to Iraq. They can be sent to Afghanistan if the U.S. government sees it's necessary. And that's why they started expanding this endless, huge army base, and now it had become even bigger. And some say it's the biggest U.S. military base in Asia, but we think it's the biggest U.S. Military base overseas. The size is bigger than some 3,500 acres, but once you go there, it looks much bigger because you cannot see the end. And those land that now the U.S. military has built apartment buildings, hangars, airfield, all the infrastructure to wage war in the region used to be those beautiful rice paddies. There was a famous song that we used to sing. South Korean people loved that song called Sunset, because the sunset that you would see standing on the rice paddy was spectacular. I couldn't forget how beautiful it was, and now I cannot see it anymore. And the rice paddies turned to be one of the deadliest weapon storages in the world. There are about 800 US military bases in the whole world in 173 countries. 173 countries the US has its military bases. Do you know how many US military bases in South Korea? It's not 38. It's much, much, much more than 38 military bases. Do you know how many? During the 1990s, there was about 150 US military bases. Right now, there are 83 US military bases in South Korea. South Korea is a small country. Think about it, you have 83 US military bases in that country, and now we have one more, the THAAD base, well, which is a basically golf course, but pretty soon it will become a new US military base. The villagers in Seongju, the southern Korea, are fighting every day, literally 24 hours, 7, trying to stop any military vehicles or construction vehicles from going to the golf course. The missile launchers are already there, 6 of them. Each launcher has 8 interceptor missiles, so you can say there are about 48 missiles ready to so-called hit to kill the missiles are not everything. You have this X-band radar, this strong radar that can detect any military or civilian activities in China. It has range more than 1,000 kilometers, or even say it can gather sensitive information up to 2,000 kilometers. It's like more than 1,000 miles. So if you put this X-band radar in Korea, the US basically can gather sensitive military information from China and some parts of Russia and North Korea. So the people of Seongju resisted, and again, in September 7th this year, it was less than 2 months ago, South Korean government, and behind it is the US military, sent 8,000 militarized police with riot gear, and they crushed, they removed us with force. They beat us. They dragged us out of the roadblock that we try to stop. THAAD missile mounted trucks. Jeju Island is famous for its pristine ecosystem. It's so beautiful that rare dolphins live there in the sea. And first time I went there, I was fascinated by the beauty of the dolphins and the sea and the nature. And so I decided to keep it as it is. Because at the time, the construction of the Jeju Naval Base didn't even start. The villagers of Gangjang on Jeju Island fought against the commencement of the construction from 2007. The actual construction began in 2011, and it was finished in 2016. At first, South Korean government also announced that we need to have a new naval base on Jeju Island. Nobody understood. Why? Because South Korea has already 5 naval bases in Busan, in Jinhae, in Mokpo, in Pyeongtaek, in Donghae. We know that. Why do we need another naval base when we have already 5? South Korean government says, oh, we need to get ready because the threat from North Korea is there to deter North Korea's threat. Well, look at the map and see where Jeju Island is located. It's located far south, the farthest location from North Korea. And Jeju Island and southern part of Jeju Island is the village of Gangjang, where the government of South Korea, working with the United States military, built this gigantic naval base. This Jeju Naval Base is facing South China Sea and East China Sea. And I don't think South Korean government has enough warships to send to Jeju Naval Base, because I know, I live there, I see it every day. 1/3 of the time, the base is empty. Who is using the Jeju Naval Base? The US is using it. In October, about 1 week ago, this massive scale of South Korea's Navy and US Navy joint military drill was over, and some 40 warships participated in the joint drill that took place in the East Sea and the West Sea of Korean Peninsula. 30 US warships came to Korea armed with Aegis missiles and every high-tech weapons. One of the battleships came to a Jeju Naval Base right after the joint drill was over. And so, and it was not the first time. After the completion of Jeju Naval Base in February of 2016, the US Navy has sent 6 warships to there, and the Pacific commander of the US military has openly said that it wants to send its USS Zumwalt to the Jeju Naval Base. Have you heard of the Zumwalt? It's some 16,000-ton huge combat vessel, but because it has stealth function, that it looks like a very, very small fishing vessel on Navy's radar, and it's armed with like most deadliest high-tech missiles and railguns, and it's so expensive. One Zumwalt costs up to $4 billion or $5 billion. And South Korean government says, oh yeah, we welcome any strategic assets sent from the US because of the North Korea's nuclear crisis. But the soldiers from the US, those weapons from the US, makes us South Korean people feel safer. Do I feel safer? Let me tell you, we don't. And what we see every day on Jeju Island is the US Navy soldiers that we have never seen before. They walk around the neighborhood. Are they our friends? Jeju people get to ask themselves. And what they say is that friends don't come on battleships. If you want to become a true friend of South Korea, then don't even think about attacking North Korea, because not only North Korean people will die, people like me will die too. And that's what war is about. South Korean people have relatives, grandparents, they Korean War survivors, and they say 6 million people died during the Korean War. And we have like memories of US military's atrocities against Korean civilians. So during the war, it was not the soldiers who were killed, but many civilians were killed too. For example, Jeju Island, the massacre started in 1947 and it lasted until 1954. The Jeju people fought against the division of Korea, and so they set up People's Committee all over the island and started governing themselves. But the U.S. didn't want it, and then there were uprisings on the island, and the massacre started, and some 80,000 people of Jeju died during the massacre, according to the official records. But in reality, Jeju people say some 80,000 people died or killed. So to their hearts and eyes, the war has never ended. And making this huge naval base on the island of world peace is, U.S. warships and U.S. soldiers, it brings the memory of atrocities. And so it doesn't make us feel safer. And what they do in Korea is escalating the military tensions and making more military bases, sending more troops now that they have this THAAD missiles that is supposed to protect South Korea. It doesn't protect South Korea because THAAD missiles stand for Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, and South Korea is not a big country. The size is just like New Jersey. And so if North Korea wants to attack South Korea, the missiles coming from North Korea will not go high enough so that THAAD missile system can shoot the interceptor missiles and hit it in the air. Korean people know that. We just don't have the power to sign the peace treaty with North. I don't know if you know this, but South Korea does not have wartime operational control of its military. U.S. commander has the power to control South Korean military in wartime. And so even though we want the war, even though how much we want to live peacefully with North Korea, the situation does not make us, and the U.S. does not give up its ambitions to maintain its dominance in the region. It does not give up its greed that they gain from maintaining the situation as it is. The U.S. war manufacturers like Raytheon, that's the maker of the X-band radar, and Lockheed Martin. South Korean government is importing 40 Lockheed Martin made F-35 fighter jets, and it costs billions of dollars. In 2014, according to U.S. congressional studies, South Korea is the biggest arms importer in the whole world. In that year alone, South Korea imported some $7.8 billion worth of weapons, and among them, $7 billion are from the U.S. And so South Korea buys whole lot of U.S. weapons, and those companies making a lot of money. And so they don't want to see the Korean situation solved peacefully. I think that's why Donald Trump is making all the remarks about we are locked and loaded. So when Donald Trump visits South Korea on November 7th, let me tell you, tens of thousands of people, if not hundreds of thousands of people, will take out to the streets, including me, demanding Donald Trump go back and don't even think about using its military, because we know that the U.S. has been aspiring to send more troops to Asia-Pacific region. Barack Obama said the U.S. is sending 60% of its naval might to Asia-Pacific region. That's why they made the Jeju Naval Base, and they're sending THAAD missiles and stuff like that. But just like the people of Jeju has never gave up the peaceful struggle against the Jeju naval base, even though it was completed. Just like the Songju people who are still sitting on the streets, blocking the road, that only road that leads to the entrance of the golf course. We'll never stop fighting against the militarized situation, and we will fight for peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joyakgol, for those insights. Between you and JT, we've gotten a lot of information tonight. And I saw an item on the internet news just before I left home to come here, is that our Defense Secretary Mattis is at the DMZ, at the 38th parallel, making warlike noises and saying that he'll be followed shortly by President Trump, so making warlike noises. So you're speaking to us tonight, couldn't come at a better time. I thought we'd have Q&A for a while.
When I teach the Korean War in my class, I talk about the Jeju Massacre, and I dramatize it. I said the soldiers, under the control of the U.S. military, lined up the civilians, the peasants from the villages on the island, made them kneel, tied their hands behind their back, poured gasoline on them, and set 30,000 people on fire. That's the government that you have, Democrat or Republican. It's fascist, racist, and imperialist.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was the U.S. military officers and U.S. military commanders who trained then South Korean soldiers who committed the heinous crime of killing 30,000 people or 60,000 people. It was the U.S. military who supplied the South Korean military with weapons. And it was the U.S. military who gave direct orders to kill those so-called communist sympathizers who were just civilians who wanted to live on their island peacefully, and they were just killed by the U.S. military.
Unless there are any more urgent questions, are there some?
My name is Ayoung Che Ayoung, and I'm a sister with JT. JT and I were part of a group of 30 women peace activists who crossed the DMZ from North Korea to South Korea in 2015. We have not been able to repeat a crossing because of all the security laws that have just fallen in place since then. But we have each year gone back to the only place we can go, which now is South Korea, and we have walked laterally, horizontally across the southern border of the DMZ, and are hoping that circumstances will allow us to make another crossing very soon, this time possibly from South Korea to North Korea, with the intention, for the purpose of opening some doors and some windows where we can meet each other, talk to each other, touch each other, and start little avenues of dialogue. I just wanted to add that we have been working steadily, the Women Cross DMZ group, but we are spread out all over the world, and it's very difficult to even have conference calls because somebody could be, at midnight when we're here in the afternoon. So despite that, we've been working very hard to press for a diplomatic solution to avert war at all times. We've written to the Secretary General, the new one, Antonio Guterres. We've spoken to members of Congress. We've held a couple of conferences down in D.C., to which, you're all welcome to come. It's an educational thing, but also we just need to voice our concerns. If we don't speak up, nobody will know what is in our minds, and we just need more people to become aware of it. We have done now 4 or 5 webinars and intend to do them at least one a month, and they are educational webinars where we invite experts and analysts to talk about the impact of what is going on now, and if there is anything that we can learn that we can share. And we see this not as just a Korea issue, but it is a Northeast Asia issue. In fact, if the worst happens, it's a worldwide issue. Just to be clear, the website, if you check it out, you will see past webinars that you can click on for the YouTube, and you see what you have missed and also get to know what is coming up. It's womencrossdmz.org.
Thank you. Reverend Kim, would you come up? Reverend Kim from the church of the least of these, I think is associated with the Judson Memorial Church, has some news about something for November 3rd. Is that right?
South Koreans planned International No Trump Day relay solidarity rally starting in Korea in response to Trump's November visit to Japan, South Korea, and China, and Vietnam, and the Philippines. So No Trump Day oppose warmongering, military intimidation, and Trump demand withdrawal of THAAD and U.S. Army, and hostile policy toward North Korea, and calls for peace on Korean Peninsula and East Asia. So they are South Korea, the big coalition. They ask us and China and Japan, and that the progressive Korean Americans, the Korean in Japan and China, and non-Korean peace organization in New York, DC, LA, asked to participate in this international No Trump Day rally. Okay, I'll send you. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Kim. Your comment has caused our main speaker to desire to burst out in song. So he's going to play a song for us now.
This song is called Like a Rock. The title is Like a Rock, and Gangjong people love this song because this sacred rock of Kurumbi was destroyed by the construction of the Jeju Naval Base. But the people of Gangjong think that the rock is still alive, even though it was blasted by dynamite, and now it's covered with concrete. But in the deep down their hearts, the rock is still alive, and so it gives them the hope and the strength to keep on going their peaceful struggle in front of the Jeju Naval Base main gate every day. If you come to Gangjong Village on Jeju Island, at noon every day, we sing this song and dance together. And so let me sing this one for you. And imagine yourself, you are doing this peaceful human chain around the Jeju Naval Base. The people will never give up until they close down the Navy base and convert it into a peace park.
대지에 깊이 박힌 저 바위는 굳세게도 서 있으니 우리 모두 절망에 굴하지 않고 시련 속에 자신을 깨우쳐가며 마침내 올 해방 세상 주춧돌이 돼 바위처럼 살자꾸나 빠밤 빠밤 빠바바밤 빠밤 빠바밤 빠바바바밤 빠밤 빠바밤 빠밤 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 바람에 흔들리는 건 뿌리가 얕은 갈대일 뿐 대지에 깊이 박힌 저 구럼비 굳세게로 서 있으니 우리 모두 절망에 굴하지 않고 시련 속에 자신을 깨우쳐가며 마침내 올 해방 세상 주춧돌이 돼 바위처럼 살자꾸나 바위처럼 살자꾸나
That wraps up our program. Thank you all very much for coming out on a Friday night. And you want to get a group photo? Okay, if you're interested in a group photo with our speakers, please come up. Thank you.
If it's not too much of a hassle, please join this taking group photo with us, because with the banners here, you can show your support to Korean people. You know, you can show your face so that I can bring the photo and I can, show it to my people. And, they will know that there are tons of American people who oppose the war on Korean Peninsula. And yeah, they support peace. Please.
For peace in Korea. Today, today, today. For peace in Korea. Today, today, today.
비 굳세게로 서 있으니 우리 모두 절망에 굴하지 않고 시련 속에 자신을 깨우쳐가며 마침내 올 해방 세상 주춧돌이 돼 바위처럼 살자꾸나 바위처럼 살자꾸나